All right, guys, we're going to talk about bluffing as a very simple product of efficiency. Um, and obviously, obviously, you can get more sophisticated, but just understanding this will help you a lot. This is a hand from Winamax that someone played. Uh, so again, it ties back into this absolute strength versus, you know, relatively how good your combo is doing. Um, so we'll just start with the hand. What happened in it? So yeah, this is all in euros. But anyways, so we open. We're opening for middle position. Hijack calls us. Got a fold button calls, and we flop with what is basically the third nuts. Effectively, like you can have Jack 10, you can have 5 6, um 6 10. I guess 6 10 suited maybe the button can have, but I mean this is Winamax. This is not like some Indian side where you have unlimited re-entry, so I would consider like the fact that we do unblock Jack 10, and I wouldn't be too concerned about the flush draws because we have a very relevant blocker to that, which is, first of all, there's a 9 of hearts that blocks like 8 9, so two pairs 7 9, 9 10, even Jack 9 with a gutty, and then we have the clubs blocked, and also the blocker there is the 9, which also then the villain doesn't have 8 9. So some very relevant suited cards we block here. uh and I don't think at 200 big blinds deep, I don't think this. Yeah, it's 50 NL, right? Yeah, I think I just do not see the villain having flatted or not like 3 bet with really good hands. um so decent board, bad bet, but I kind of am going to be indifferent to it because it is kind of hard to, at this stack depth, to find a good sizing, um, you know three-handed, and I don't really mind this bet. um, he snap called or whatever, like he called, and on the turn our hand just went from hero to zero. uh, now I was asked a few questions, um, which is uh, what my line would be going forth, and like sizing. So first of all, I'd check here, and maybe if you bet 1/3 part, 2/3 part, even part on the turn, I'd call. There's a 4 to the straight, and I think the flush draws aren't that relevant because I think with flush draws, he is like, we do block some weaker aces as well. So he can have overpairs, but again, those will all be scared of this kind of board texture. So this is kind of bad because here's the thing. So this is what happened basically. Part got called, and I was convinced at this point this is a straight. And then an ace comes, and damn, man, like, I think this person did a few things that and I have permission that's why there's mass names. Think so he's getting 41%, like this is like over 2x spot. Like this guy has to like basically only call straights. Why would you want, with like, say if this was a value bet, this is what really it is, right? Why would you bluff with nines, right? With set of nines, that'd be a pretty inefficient bluff. And the topic is bluffing as a, you know, factor of how efficient it is. And by efficiency, I mean how much juice can you take out of a certain situation. And he folds, and I think even that is just burning money. And then, so let's just go over this hand really quickly first. Boom shakalaka. So it was a 4 card flush, 4 card straight, and I'm just gonna talk about the pot. It was 1,121 was the pot. So like that was already there before, on the flop. So that was the pot on the flop. Now let's just do a simple exercise. Hold up, let me just move this here. Let's just assume that our range is just air, pure air, not even nuts or air. Our range is air. It's air. So what does that mean? We have 0% equity. If we get called, we're bust. We're not gonna have any kind of. So I'm not talking about the hand now. We don't look at our hand. We look at a distribution of hand. So if we have 0% equity, there's two things that can happen when we bet pot into pot. So we bet pot into pot, and if villain folds, what do we win? Well, 1121 was already in the pot. We put 1121 more, 1.1k whatever, and so we just won 1,121, right? Because the 1,121 was ours that just got kicked back to us. The net winning is this. Now say it's 50-50, like he's gonna call 50% times, he's gonna fold 50% times, because that's what he's supposed to do if he defends properly versus a pot size bet. And especially on that board, he probably has more calls. Now say we do the same thing, pot into pot, and this time villain calls. How much do we lose? Well, 1,121 was already in there. We bet 1,121. He called, he took it down. That doesn't really matter. Now it's the bet that we just put it out there. We lost -1,121. So the EV of this bluff, it's pretty simple. It's 1,121 times 50%, so half, basically half of this divided by 2, which is pretty easy to calculate. So that's 5. 60, and then there will be 10 left, which is times 2, so 560.5. So 5 plus 5 or 5 times 2, right? Holy jeez, man, I'm bad at this stuff. I'm pretty sure it's right, but I'm just gonna confirm it. Yeah, okay, alright, hold that sensitive. So 50 times we're gonna be plus, and you can just imagine the other 50% times it'll be 50% of negative this, which will be negative 560.5. So the EV of this bluff, of this pot size bluff with air, is 0. Now what if we bet smaller? What if we bet half pot? Well, just by betting 50% of the pot, here is pot into pot, right? He has to he's getting basically, we're laying him 4-1. He has to call 25% is the equity that he's getting. So he needs to be calling 66% times. So already a jump inherently. But let's say the same situation arises where he doesn't first of all change up his frequency of calling. So now when it's 1 1 2 1 in the pot, we bet 5 6, so now we bet half pot. What do we win if he folds? We win 1 1 2 1, right? Because this just comes back to us and this is our net winning, 1 1 2 1, right? This is on the turn, by the way, all of this, or turn order or whatever. Now 50% of times he will call. So 1 1 2 1 was on the pot and we bet 560.5. He calls us, and how much do we lose now? Well, we lost this bet that this never came back to us. This was already in the pot, so this is what we put in extra. So we lost 560.5. I mean, you can add this plus this and like this plus this minus this. It's gonna be the same number. So now if you subtract both of these, you see that the number is 560.5. Now that's not, we shouldn't think of this as like being the EV, chip EV of our play here when we bet 50% with air versus betting pot with air. What we should think about is in order for us to break even, our villain just had to change from calling half the times to calling 66% of the times, right? So because or no, hold up, think about it even simpler. He has to call twice as often as he folds, because this positive 560.5, and then there's this sorry, this is one outcome and this is the other one, and this is just the net that we have. So in order for this to be break even for him, that means he needs to do this twice, right? Then it'll be negative 1121. That means that will cancel out with this one, and then our EV will be 0. So what happens when we bet? Because 2 times that 560.5 equals negative 1121, which balances out the times we won, the EV becomes 0 again. So it balances out the times we win extra when he folds, when he overfolds basically. So that means simply our villain has to call 2x more as often as he folds. So for every fold he has to call twice. And in our case, where the sizing was a bit more, it was 41%, he has to call, what were we risking? I have the pot right here, 10 point something to win, 10 point something was pot to win 7,310.1. Yeah, it was 41%. So 40% is, so that would be what? So that's, no, sorry, not that, that's just the pot odds. It would be he would need to fold out 69.xx% of his range, not even 66. He will have to actually like only defend with about 30% of his range. His range already is like there, like 12%, right? So 0.12 times 0.30 is about like less than 4. It's less than 4. It's less than 4% of the top 4% of his range, but the top 4% on a board with 9, 8, 7, 6, whatever, right? 2. This was a heart. This was a club. This was a club. This was a diamond. I have a pretty good memory. No, the screen is open on the other side. So, and then the river was an ace, right, of hearts. So what are his bluffs that he folds anyways? Well, hearts, right? Uh, Jack X of hearts. Uh, 5 7 he might fold. He might fold. Uh, bottom pair. He might have had something like Queen Jack with one of the clubs that, though we do block, but still we don't block. You could have Queen of clubs, Jack of something, hearts or something like that. So then there's 6, 7, 8, 9. So 10 5 got there, but 10 again, 10 5 is not going to be in his range anyways. His range is going to be more like over pairs, which again on this board. So all of these hands that he kind of will fold, and maybe some weaker aces he folds by the turn. He's not going to continue floating on this kind of board unless he's got like some kind of like, even if he's got a pair, like uh he's probably not going to get to the river. So on the turn, even some ace x is going to fold that he's floating with. So everything he folds, everything, uh, basically, how do I put it? Um, mm, yeah. So basically, because even the smallest card that he had on this board, since pair of sixes or whatever, since we fold that out, um, here I'll give you another example actually. So I would just check this down, and if he bets 2/3 pot, maybe he'll get me to call, but otherwise not. It's again a pretty shit card. Let's think of a blind versus blind spot where you limp first in. Let's say it's ace of diamonds, 3 of hearts, 7. I need a two small cards here. Make this one king, because I also want to block ace king, and then this 4 of clubs. So there's 2 hearts, 2 4s, diamond, and you have queen 8 offsuit with like say queen of hearts, whatever. I don't know what the 8 is. Now say you bet the flop, say you bet 200 into a pot of like say 300. It's a pretty hefty bet, right? And then you check the turn, or maybe I don't know, or you check the flop at the turn, and then you bet the river, but you bet small. Bet like, now the pot's like 500, and he calls, so 6 700 plus the ante, so 800 900 whatever it is, and you bet 200 into a pot of say like 8 to 900. Now what's happening? Because we fold out everything that is not a pair, or like is worse than a 3x or even like 4x, say, uh, and everything that's not gonna fold is, at least because the sizing that we've chosen, it's going to be at least like he's gonna hero call with 3x or 4x. So everything that we're already beating, which is nothing when he has air, we're winning against, because there's also an ace and a king on the board. So we'll have a lot of win showdown anyways here. We have 8 7 covered, some, that kind of thing. And yeah, he called, but the board is somewhat like flushy. And anything that is, better than a 3 or better is better than our hand, and it's gonna not fold. So what does that essentially mean in terms of, if you think about it in terms of efficiency? Whoa, what the fuck just happened? What happened to my VLC? What? What the fuck? Where's my mouse? Oh, sorry, my bad. So now think about this in terms of efficiency. First of all, we had the situation where with the air experiment, with the betting with the air, and then betting a bluff smaller, required our villain to call twice as much. Now this also means that when we're targeting Nico, when we're targeting some kind of range, we can again think of this like simple example. And again, whenever we're out of position, our bet sizing should be dictated by combos and blockers and stuff like that, because literally our sizing is what changes the range that we're going to get called by. Or because here with 200 into 8 900, there's a chance, non-zero chance, that he calls with this bottom pair. And if we just check and he doesn't have either of those, and he doesn't have either of those in this situation as well, I mean, that's a wasted bluff. Now if we had in this situation, or in any situation, for example, if we bet huge, principally with the nuts, that's very efficient. Why is it very efficient? From its definition. The efficiency is derived from the definition itself. And I'm gonna pause and do part 2.